Thank you for this morning. A very well, they're always profound, but I found that the meditation was quite extraordinary for me. I need help with this word abiding. I've meditated for many years now, not always easily, sometimes the wandering mind or the sleepiness or so on. But something happened when you talked about, or you mentioned the pathless path, and something dropped away, effort dropped away. And I don't know how to describe it. I suddenly, it sounds ridiculous. I suddenly fell into eternity.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound ridiculous at all. You're right. You fell out of time into eternity. You're absolutely right.
There wasn't a person in me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I just fell into eternity. I became
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Eternity.
Exactly.
And of course I didn't want to leave it. I could hear your voice. I could experience my thoughts of not wanting to leave. And one of them was that I just didn't want to leave it. And it stayed for a while. Well, it stayed for the length of... and even after I opened my eyes. And then gradually, the world took over again, my absorption. Sorry, my question is about abiding. Is this what abiding is?
Yes.
And is this whenever you say, just abide? Because it felt different from just being, which I practice.
What I really mean is being. But the suggestion to abide makes just the slightest concession to the separate self. Being does not need the instruction, abide. It is abidance. Abidance is what it is, not what it does. So being doesn't require the instruction, abide in yourself. So the suggestion to abide is just a concession I make to the one who is not yet abiding as being, to the separate self. But it's only a very slight concession. It's the smallest concession I can make. I'm not saying repeat a mantra or visualize a flame or something. That would be much more of a concession. This is just a tiny. The word abidance is as close to being. You can't get closer to being than abidance. So it's just a little concession, but abidance is what I mean. Sorry, being is what I mean. Being is pure abidance. But it's not a person, as you quite rightly said. It's not a person abiding in being. There is no entity to abide in being. It's abidance as being. Because being is the only being there is. There isn't being plus a separate entity that's going to abide in being. There's just being.
So what happened? Was I just being?
Yes.
Because when I normally just be, it feels wonderful and it brings me, and the universe cooperates and all that we hear. But this wasn't that. I mean,
remember Rumi, sink down and down and down in ever widening rings of being. You just sunk deeper into being.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean to say that you're not previously abiding as being, but you sink into the depths of it. Being has unfathomable depths. You're just sinking deeper and deeper into being. And as we sink deeper and deeper into being, all the finest layers of experience are dissolved. The sense, for instance, that we abide in, abidance is something that takes place in time. We abide in being during our meditation. No, there's no during in being.
Yes, that's what I mean about eternity.
Exactly. So even this one of these last layers, this subtle, very, very subtle, very deep belief that we have, even long after we've recognized our true nature, that time really exists. And we are abiding in time. That fell away. So you literally fell out of time into eternity. Or at least that's an interpretation that makes a concession to the separate self. There's no you to fall out of time. It's a poetic way of saying that you just sank deeper into being, and you realized you being tasted your nature even more deeply, tasted your eternal nature even more deeply than you usually do. And when then the mind rises again, it then interprets that experience and says, I fell out of time into eternity. Or the mind then tries to say something which is sort of vaguely rational, but half poetic, half rational, to try to make sense of the experience on its own terms. What are the mind's terms? Time and space. So it tries to take the experience in which the mind was not actually present. The mind rises again. The mind has been struck by this understanding. The mind, something has happened. And it tries to explain what has happened in its normal terms, in its normal linear logical terms. But it can't quite do it. So it says something semi-rational like, I fell out of time into eternity. But the power of a statement like that is that because they're informed by the experience, they have the power to take the listener to the experience.
Yes.
So sometimes we hear a phrase like that, like you did this morning, something about what you heard this morning just took you there.
Yes, because I could hear your voice. It felt at a great distance.
Like an echo in the distance.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And I heard you, I mean, I didn't think about what you were saying, but I heard you use several times the I. And I certainly couldn't identify with, I didn't understand. It was like you were talking double Dutch to me because there was no I. Not even the I you're talking about.
Well, the I that I was talking about is not the I that we usually think I is. The I that we think about is just the Christian name of being. That teaching was not necessary for you at that time, so you were right just to ignore it. But I is the name that which knows itself gives to itself. It's not a person that knows itself, it's being that knows itself. So the proper use of the word I is the name of being, it's the divine name, God's name. We use the word I more often than we use any other word. So I was trying to connect the experiential aspect of the meditation which you were experiencing. I was trying to connect that with what we usually refer to as I, to precipitate this understanding in us that what we mean when we say I, because our whole lives revolve around I. So we should know what I refers to.